The remnants of a cold, which is affecting my voice. I can hear it myself, so I'm sure you can possibly as well. And that means when you're doing that, you run the risk of running out of voice at some point. But I don't think that'll happen because I've been well on the road to recovery. And it's certainly nice to be back here with all of you. I've mentioned it before, right from this pulpit, this is one of my favorite places to worship God on a Sunday morning. In fact, I can't think of any place I enjoy it more. and I think that's not because of the building, it's because of the people in the building. So it just, something about it warms my heart to be with you because I believe that this congregation has truly dedicated, spiritual-minded people. And I'm happy to be with you this morning. As Jean mentioned, my wife Nadia could not come, and that was sad for both of us. I left her behind in Ukraine, jumped on a plane, and came. I wasn't ready to leave either, and we had some unfinished things we were really getting accomplished there, and somebody had to stay behind and wrap those up. So I thought it might be best for her to do that since she speaks the language, and secondly, since she no doubt would not want to be the keynote speaker of this lectureship. So here I am, and it's going to be, I think, a great week. I'm looking forward to it tremendously. I appreciate all of those who work with this congregation for the invitation, the eldership, and Jean, and everybody who's involved. Denver, of course, has been a fixture here for so long, ever since I've known the congregation, and appreciate so much being invited back. And I want to encourage all of you right here at the outset to invite friends, neighbors, acquaintances, unsaved brothers-in-law, whoever you might know, to come and be with us for these lectures. I do not believe that anything will be presented in this lectureship that would embarrass you for having invited someone. Pardon me, I may need to do that cough several times, so I'll apologize in advance, and you'll understand. But as I say, I do not believe you'll be embarrassed to invite friends and neighbors or anyone you might bring in. We do stand for the truth, of course, but I believe truly it will be the truth in love that will be presented. So please do that. Make our lectureship week a good one, and we'll all be the better for it. Well, with that said, let me get on to the presentation. My voice was working fine right up to now. Maybe it'll come back to me. Let me get on to my presentation, which is a slideshow of my work in the country of Ukraine. Now, I know there are people who have been and maybe still are connected to this congregation who have gone to Ukraine. I've met some of them in the past. So this is not to steal any thunder from anybody else who may have gone there or some other place in the former Soviet Union. I've worked in Russia also for some years, and these days, concentrating more on Ukraine. They outgrew the need for me in Russia. The congregation I started there in '97 is the biggest one in St. Petersburg now, and so that's doing so well that I'm concentrating where I'm needed more. That's Ukraine. So with that said, let me see if I can get the slideshow rolling. I punched one button. Let's see if there's another button to punch. Oh, here we go. I'm not seeing on the monitor here, Gene, what's up there.
There's a little green button in the left-hand corner of the monitor.
Little green button. Thank you. Let me look for a little green button. Power. Oh, that's a button that says power?
Yeah, push on it.
I see a power button, but when I push on it, it doesn't light up green.
You don't have the right touch.
Maybe it's not plugged in down below.
Well, that's
That might be the case.
it should be turned on. It is. Oh, modern inventions. There we go.
Uh-huh. You have to hook the cord together. Okay, Ukraine.
That ought to be shot.
Now we're rolling, I think. I hope you enjoy this show. I enjoy it every time I present it. My heart is in it. I hope you'll be able to tell that. And so here we go. A map of Western Europe that includes also some of Eastern Europe, in fact, most of Eastern Europe, and you can see Ukraine there on the map, and in connection with some other countries. And so it gives you an idea of where we are. If your eyes are good enough to look up in the upper right-hand corner of that screen, you will see Moscow, or part of the word Moscow. So you see Ukraine is straight south, and below Ukraine, you can't see all the letters of the name Ukraine, I guess, but below it you see the Black Sea. If you catch a boat there and go straight south, you land on the shores of Turkey. In fact, thank you very much. I may need that. In fact, you would land right near where Aquila and Priscilla came from. And so, you see, we're kind of in Bible territory in some ways. And in fact, Paul referred to the Scythians. You remember that? And the Scythians were in Ukraine. Now, they didn't call it Ukraine back then, but they were in that lower portion of what is today Ukraine. And the Ukrainians still talk about those people. They say our ancestors were the Skefi. That's how they pronounce it, the Skefi. And they don't know much about the Skefi, but they were kind of, the forerunners of that country. So it does connect all the way back to Bible history. That's one thing that's kind of exciting about it. Well, here's a blown up version of that, and you can see the Crimea down there at the bottom end of Ukraine, kind of like the bottom end of Greece goes out like that. Same sort of thing. At the bottom of Crimea is Yalta, and those of you who have gray hair know what happened there. The Yalta Conference, right near the end of World War II, when Stalin got more territory than he deserved because his troops were closer to Berlin than ours were, and they carved up Western Europe to suit themselves, more or less, and they had the Yalta Conference to settle all that. And by the way, I went to Yalta once, and well, I went twice actually, but the first time I was there, I decided to take a day tour around the place, see the palaces, and the guide told me how many hundreds of bottles of vodka the Russian delegation drank during those days of the Yalta Conference. and it was just amazing. I've forgotten the number, but it was astronomical. And so that still, I'm afraid, is what goes on in the former Soviet Union today. But Poltava, here is the city where I make my home, and from this city, I work not only in that city, but also in a number of others, and not only cities, but some towns and villages. So there's a spring shot to give you a view of it. Looks just like you might see in our country. There's the big sign on the edge of town. That 50 is not talking about miles per hour, but of course kilometers per hour. And there's the sign again. Now you see, just looking at that, you can recognize the O as being an O. You can recognize the A and the T as looking like our letters. The B, though, is not a B. That's a V. And the first letter, which looks like the Greek letter P, which some pronounce pi on fraternities, that's P. So they took part of their letters from the Greek alphabet, part of them from the Roman alphabet, part of them from the, a couple of them look like they're from the Hebrew alphabet to me, and one of them looks like it's from Chinese. So it was all put together by some Orthodox monks way back in the beginning when my 31st great-grandfather, Vladimir the Great, decided he needed to change the nation from pagans into Christians, and he invited monks from Constantinople to come and do the job. And they came in, they found there was no written language, so they took letters out of existing alphabets, put them all together, and gave them the Cyrillic language, because one of the monks was Cyril, or as it should be pronounced, Kirill. So they have the Cyrillic language, as they would say it, or Cyrillic as we would say it. So that's how it happened, folks. And you may not have wanted to know that, but anyway, it's interesting to me because I have a kind of a language specialty. Prison number 64. I've been meaning to find out how many prisons there are in Ukraine, and I haven't yet done that. This one is located right on the outskirts of Poltava, and I've got a number of shots here that I took the first time I rolled up near this prison and stopped and got out of the car and just took various shots of it. It looks kind of bleak, stark. It even looks unfinished in some ways to me. I mean, comparing it to prisons that we see here, even those right here in this town, you know, when I look around at that prison over there or the old one over here, this looks unfinished, like they started to build a factory and forgot to finish it up. But that's the way it looks, and things go on inside. And by the way, the reason why it does look like a factory is because they do factory work in that prison. So they train the men. If they didn't have a vocation before, they train them to use one and to get one and to become useful citizens. There's right in front of that car is a big gate, one of the big gates that goes into that prison. Those are dormitories where they're housed. We're getting here into the administration building. Another close-up shot. You see the guard tower there. All of this is old hat to most of you, since you got these buildings right around here. You see them probably every day. And but I wanted to show you what the Ukrainian version of that looks like. There's the door I had to walk into to get in for my first appointment in prison number 64. And there's a woman sitting in a cage right inside that door. We talked to her through some bars and a little hole there, like a bank teller's old-fashioned window. Well, they're becoming new-fashioned windows now with modern security. But anyway, she walked in, and it didn't take her that long looking at me to recognize I was a foreigner. I don't know how they do that. I'm still trying to figure that out. I didn't even have to say a word, and she could tell I was not a Ukrainian. Something about the face. I don't know what it is, and others have told me that before. And she started kind of smiling and talking real friendly, and we got into a nice conversation. I hope to have Bible studies with her. Eventually, we got into the headman's office, and he's sitting there behind the desk back there. This shot is not good. I handed the camera off to his assistant, and he somehow didn't make the flash work, so we got darkened pictures. But that's me sitting on the left there, and that's the head man of the prison back there behind. Now, Nadia was with me on this occasion, and so when we were waiting outside before walking in there, I said, now, what is his title exactly? What do you call him, warden, director, what is it? She said, boss. I said, boss? There must be a title, must be an official title. Surely not just boss. We got inside, and I asked for his business card, and I looked at it, and it said boss. So that's the way it is in Ukraine. But this man was really friendly. Maybe you can see his face a little better there. He was just all smiles, and he came rushing around out from behind his desk to shake my hand and took my arm and said, have a seat. And he said, I'm really glad you came. And he said, by the way, I have had the American ambassador right here in my office. Now, I got really curious at that point as to why the American ambassador needed to be in his office. But I thought maybe it was none of my business to ask the question, but I thought, I wonder if there was an American in this prison sometime in the past. But anyway, very friendly welcome there in prison number 64. And in fact, this man gave me and my wife Nadia traditional shirts, or blouse in her case, of what Ukrainians wear when they put on their folk costumes. And that was worth a little bit of money, actually. And And so we felt really honored to be there. And his assistant, by the way, just so friendly and welcoming. And I told him at one point on the tour through the prison, I said, you know, to me, you look just like an American. he liked that. But anyway, we went in there to do the Lord's work. Now, sitting here in these chairs are prisoners. And this shot was snapped by Nadia just before I presented my first Bible lesson in prison number 64. She said, look here, and went and snapped that picture. We carry cameras with us everywhere and try to take shots. And here's a shot I took, kind of looking at the room as a whole. You can see a number of these faces, if you can see well enough to see the ones further back. A number of them look pretty young. Now, the man on the right, with his hands on the top of a cane there near the front, I think was the oldest man in the room. And look at that grim expression on his face. Can you see that? And he looked like that, and his eyes looked real big through those glasses. And through my whole Bible presentation, his expression never varied. It looked just like that. In fact, I never saw the man blink, and the thought came to my mind, I wonder if he likes my lesson or doesn't like it. And after it was over, he got up and kind of with a halting step walked up to me, reached out his hand, and looked at me, and he said, I really appreciate that lesson you gave today. And I said, thank you very much. And he turned around and walked out. And the assistant boss of the prison told me that man has already been in that prison 12 years. Maximum sentence is 15, and then everybody gets out. There's nobody that stays longer than 15 years there. So then, the next time I went in to give another lesson in prison number 64, I'm back in the same room again, have basically the same men in front of me, and this seat where the older man is sitting there was empty. He was not in it, and I looked around the room, didn't see him anywhere. I started giving my lesson, and a couple of minutes later, he came in that door back there on the back right, and I said, come on in, we saved a seat for you. And he kind of smiled at that, and he came down the aisle, sat down, and after that lesson was over, this man came up and he wanted to talk longer, and he wanted to tell me how much he really enjoyed hearing the Word of God. And the assistant director of that prison, assistant boss that is, told me, he said, you know, I'm really happy you've come because we've had an Orthodox priest coming in here for years. In fact, we got a little Orthodox church building right here on the prison campus. And in fact, he showed it to us. And he said all he does is come in here and conducts worship. He never tells them anything about the Bible. And he said, I'm really glad that you're doing something instructive, educational. And so we got such a wonderful reception from prison number 64. I'll go back there a second before I get on to that next shot. And I want to say that that many of these men started writing letters to us. I offered Bible correspondence course. They wrote, and we started the ball rolling on that. So we hope to get conversions. This is just a recent activity we got into. I hope to get conversions from this effort. And we have converted others in other prisons in Ukraine in the past. And in fact, one of our faithful Christians in another congregation that I work with is himself an ex-convict who is now a dedicated Christian, and he's also helping in a phase of this kind of work. He helps men who get out of prison, and now they need rehabilitation. They need a sort of a halfway house to get them used to being back in society and not getting back into some illegal activity. And this man works with people like that. And so we've got Ukrainian Christians involved in this kind of work. And so it's rather gratifying. Congregations in Ukraine meet wherever they can meet. Some of them are small, some of them are larger. This one's meeting in an apartment. And so here they are gathered around the a couple of long tables put together, end up with about a 12-foot length on the table, and just jam everybody in if there's a place at the table, and if there isn't, they sit back next to the wall or in the corner or stand out there in the corridor or wherever. And we have Bible study in places like that. We have worship. You can see the Lord's Supper trays out in the middle of the table. And so there's not many owned church buildings in Ukraine. And there are more than 100 congregations, I think, by now. I haven't really counted those lately. But I don't know of more than about 4 or 5 church buildings or properties that are actually owned. Now, there may be more, and I just don't know about them, but most of them are meeting in private homes, rented facilities, sometimes like a library or some auditorium that they can find in their town or city. And I have even conducted worship outside in a yard under a tree. And so we do it every way we can. It kind of makes me feel like I'm back in the Apostle Paul's time, meeting by a riverside or something. And we enjoy doing it however and wherever and whenever we can. Now, here is a small village called Tirishki, and this is meeting in a woman's home. And so that's me at the far end, and a couple of our, 2 or 3 of our Poltava Christians came with us on this occasion. By the way, the preceding shot is the Poltava congregation, where my home base is, you might say, there. And Tirishki is not far away. So we usually conduct worship in 2 different places. I mean, I do it in 2 different places, and whoever from Poltava wants to go with us to Tirishki will go along. So the bearded man down on the far corner down there is from Poltava, and he's very active in this work. And by the way, this man was converted in December 1994, right after we made our first approach into the city of Poltava. He was baptized, and shortly thereafter, he came up to me one day and he said, I feel like I have been coming into the Lord's church all of my life. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, when I was a young man, I read the Bible. Even though it was illegal to do it, I got a copy of it, and I read it. And he said, I wanted to be a Christian. I wanted to be a member of the church I read about in the Bible. And I read about it there. And he said, I looked around me, and I couldn't find it. All I could see was the Orthodox Church, and it didn't match what I was reading in the Bible. So he said, I just kept looking and wondering and waiting and asking myself, where is the Lord's church? Why aren't they here in my country? And he said, it wasn't till you came in and started presenting these Bible lectures until I finally heard it for the first time. And I said to myself, this is the church that I've been wanting and looking for all my life. And he was, I think, the second person baptized, maybe even been the first, I'm not sure. It's been now 18 years almost. So he and his wife sitting next to him are faithful Christians, and a number of these others are as well, standing up shot of some of them. Here's another town. I'll give you the spelling test later on how to write this town name. They love long words in that part of the world. And in fact, if you were to take, let's say, one page typed up on a computer that completely filled a page of English and told somebody, translate this into Russian, it would take about a page and a quarter to translate it into Russian. They like long words. They use prefixes and suffixes in order to get that word expressed. Like the word next. I don't know why they don't just have a little word like next to say next, but they have to say slediyushi. That's 4 syllables. And I've asked them, why you need 4 syllables when one will do? And they said, well, you don't understand. We have to have the root of the meaning, and then we have to somehow put a suffix on there or a prefix on there to indicate that it's not this very thing, but the next one coming, and that's how we end up with these long words. This one, by the way, is named after the Dnieper River, which is the main river in Ukraine, be like their Mississippi River. And Dzerzhinsky was the man who founded the KGB. So he was an early political leader in the Communist Party. So they put the river name, the man's name together, and ended up with Dneprodzержinsk. Now, before I show you some actual views of Dneprodzержinsk, I've got a few shots here to show you some church buildings, because I wanted to do this to lead up to what I've got in Dneprodzержinsk. Here's the way an Orthodox church building might look. This is one of them on a road out of Poltava. In fact, on the way to Dneprodzержinsk, you would see this church building. Now, it looks really nice. Looks kind of sparkling fresh, doesn't it? I guarantee you it did not look that way when the Soviet Union ended in 1991. It was old, dilapidated, run down, had been ransacked, was not being used as a church. All that was illegal in the Soviet time. They turned these church buildings into museums and warehouses and you name it, and that's what it became. Sometimes restaurants, bars, and through legal actions, they ended up getting back many of those properties, not all of them. And then the state started subsidizing renovation on those places. If you were to walk into this one on a typical Sunday morning, you probably would not see more than 6 people inside. If it's Easter or Christmas, the place will be full. And they go twice a year. So when you're born, and then Easter and Christmas, and then when you die, and you know, you get those occasions hardly any time in between. And so they made it look that way because they want to keep the Orthodox Church as the church that is identified with the former Soviet Union, whether that's Russia, Ukraine, or one of the other republics. They do not have a state church as such, but they have been so attached to the Orthodox Church for so long. It's their historical church that they wanted to subsidize it and keep it alive. And now we have a new president. He's been in a short time. The one before him was a pro-Western man with an American-born wife of Ukrainian descent. And when this man came into office, he said, we're going to make some changes around here. No more subsidy of the Orthodox Church. We will not put any more state money into it, and all churches will be equal. And I was glad to hear that. And I imagine his wife, who had been an American citizen and then became a Ukrainian citizen later after she married him, probably had something to do with that. And so great changes came about during that man's tenure in the presidency. We now have a man in office. I don't know if you read the news any about that part of the world, but we now have a man in office over there who is a former bandit. He spent time in prison, mafia connected, and close ties with the powers that be in Russia, who are also bandits. So you know, the future doesn't look so good if they keep that kind of thing going. And but we'll just have to wait and see. No particular harm to the Lord's church yet, except the fact that I used to be able to get 5-year visas, and now I can only get 1-year visas. So they're kind of getting restrictive in some ways, it looks like. Some more shots. The man and his wife standing out there is one of my overseeing elders from Lake Houston, Texas, and his wife, who've been over with us several times. And that shot, by the way, is in Poltava. That, again, was renovated through state money. Now, here's what a non-Orthodox church might look like. This one is shot in the city of Poltava, and it's a charismatic church, New Life Church, just like those around in the U.S., I guess. And they got this building that was built to be a store and turned it into a church building. They happened to get it while it was still under construction, and so they got it at a bargain price. There's what the Baptists did, a lot of it through their own hands. So they have a kind of a large presence there. Now we're into Dneprodzержinsk, where I was going in the first place. And this is the view that I saw every morning during most of the year, 1994, my first full year in Ukraine. My first visit there was in 93, and then I started working full-time in this work in 94. And I lived in an apartment with a Christian family, and that was my view every morning. And so you look out across that yard, all the buildings look alike. You can't tell one from another. You have to kind of keep in mind which one you're going to and look at the numbers and be sure you're in the right place. I was having a Bible study with an Adventist woman right across on the far side there. And then my time was coming to return to the States for some weeks, and I thought I better tell her I'm leaving and when I'm going to be back. And so I went in the entrance, went up to the right floor, made my right turn, pushed the doorbell. Strange woman came to the door, and I said, "Oh, I guess I have gotten into the wrong entrance into this building. I'm looking for Olga." She said, "No Olga here." I said, "I have her phone number. Could I use your phone and ask her which entrance she's in?" And the woman said, "Yes." Called her up, found out I was one entrance off. And I said, "Thank you very much." And she said, "Oh, just a second." She said, "Could you come for dinner tomorrow?" I said, "Well, yes, I guess I could." And she said, "What time would you like to come?" I said, "How about noon?" She said, "Wonderful." And so I went back at noon. Her whole family was there, friends and neighbors. The whole place was full. I guess they showed up to see what this American would look like. I don't know. But that's how you can make contacts in that part of the world. Just the fact that you're not one of them opens a lot of doors. Now, here's what I was getting to by showing all those church buildings. This is a property that we were able to get in Dnipro-Dzerzhinsk, Ukraine. And it is, let's see, I have to get my numbers in my head right. It's 8,000 square feet. I'm thinking in meters and translating. 800 square meters, which is about 8,000 square feet. We bought it for $16,000. Unfinished. It's at the bottom end of a high-rise building. You can see the building going up. This kind of stretches out because they build those ground floors to be stores. It would be a number of stores, one after another. We got the whole thing. $16,000. And that was a real great blessing. There's how you see it from one end to the other. And I'm standing there in the middle. The man in the blue shirt is, his name is Alexei. We call him Alosha. That's the familiar form. He's the preacher there. We're looking at the building from the outside not long after we bought it. The man on the right also has done quite a lot of preaching and working with me and some other congregations. Here's what it looked like on the inside. No windows, no doors, just concrete. And we started doing the renovation. See those doors there? Putting those doors on, getting that front porch put in place, slowly but surely getting windows and all that kind of thing installed. I'm not going to bore you with long shots of this. There you see metal, they call them rolettes in that part of the world. I don't know what they call them here, but pull down in front of the glass so nobody can break the glass. And those are Christians, by the way, standing out in front there. Here's a bunch of them. They're gathered early because we're about to have worship, and they like to show up early and have a lot of fellowship time. You can see how many young people are involved in that. Alosha is standing right there, sort of just to the right of middle, and almost everybody else there is a young person. And we got inside. See, it's unfinished. And this young man, his name is Denise. That would be Dennis to us. Cerebral palsy is what he has. Walks with that cane. Can't walk up steps without help. He got in there and sat down. I've never been there when he was not present. He's one of the most faithful members and just an inspiration to a lot of people. Children gathering here in an unfinished room. Then I started taking shots. We get the camera out and we take this section, then we take that section and that section, and we kind of go around. And there's Nadia, by the way, right in the front there. She sent her greetings and wanted me to tell you how sorry she was that she cannot be here with us this week. And she's very sad about that, but there was just nothing we could do about it. And there's that young man, Denise, a close-up shot of him again, and Just look around, all those people. Some of them are sitting in windowsills back there. We don't want to repeat Acts 20 and have somebody fall out, but, we do what we can do. That young man, his name is Dmitri. We call him Dima for short. And he has interpreted for me on a number of occasions in the past, but on this occasion, this was last year, I decided it's about time to do away with the interpreter. I'd been mainly using one all these years because I knew if I do it in Russian, I'm bound to make grammatical mistakes. I would be slower in English. I would probably mispronounce some words, and people would see me struggling with the language, and they'd be focusing on that and not on the message I wanted to present. So for those reasons, I've been using an interpreter most of the time, but on this occasion, I decided to go solo. In fact, 2 women from this congregation had asked me on my previous time there, they said, why don't you just preach in Russian? What do you need an interpreter for? And I said, well, good question. Maybe I should do that. So Dima came up and said, do you need my help today? And I said, no thanks, I'm going it alone this time. And they seemed to appreciate it. In fact, Nadia told me, she said, when you use an interpreter, it's like there's a window pane in front of you. They can see you, they can hear you, but there's still some little barrier there. You know what I mean? And when you speak in their heart language, you take that glass aside, and now it's right face to face, heart to heart. And so for those reasons, I guess I'm going to continue doing it in Russian, even though my Russian is far from perfect. Look at these young people, teenagers, all of them Christians. We have wonderful work with young people in that part of the world, and we got the older ones as well. And it's just a real thrill. Now, this shot is same city, but different place, different occasion, and this is a youth gathering. Now, I'm there in the front left with Nadia, and back on the far right, in the back, is a man from the Poltava region who I showed you in a previous shot, who I said has been doing a lot of preaching for us. And all the rest of these are young people, youth gathering. They all like to get their picture taken, especially with the preacher. So we're doing all of that. This girl was converted about 5 years ago and got so involved, led to the conversion of several others, and just a real jewel in the Lord's church. See this boy, she's got her arms around there. The reason why they're so thrilled with him, he's a new convert, and he was a Muslim. And that's unusual to convert one of those. Very unusual. I did mission work back in the 70s in the Middle East. I was in Lebanon, Beirut, and also our work carried me into Syria, Jordan, sometimes Palestine, Turkey as well, even over to Cyprus, but concentrating more where I was living, and that is Lebanon. And there was a convert who had been baptized in Palestine, an Arab young man who came to Beirut. And I asked him, why'd you come to Beirut? He said, I was a Muslim. He said, when I became a Christian, I was afraid for my life. Even my own family might kill me. And so he said, I'm on the run. And so that's the way it is in the Middle East. You could be killed. It'd be an honor killing, as they look at it, the ones doing the killing. And this young man, now I've never heard of honor killings in former Soviet Union, but he knew he was going to go up against the family. He knew he was going to get a lot of flack. But he was willing to do it anyway, and he became a Christian. And here he is, just shortly after he became a Christian. By the way, I saw him more recently, and he came up to me and he said, I would like to become a gospel preacher. And I thought to myself, if he does that, we'll have a great inroad into Muslims in Ukraine. Now, we don't have so many Muslims in Ukraine, but other republics of the former Soviet Union have a lot of them. You start getting into those Asian-sounding countries like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, anything with "stan" on the end of it, and they have a lot of Muslims. And so we could have a great future if this young man really means what he says. And so we'll see. He's very young right now, only 16 years old. He's 15 in that shot. Summer Bible camps. Kind of hurry through this. Look at that. That's a tent. We were blessed to be able to buy that tent. And summer Bible camps produce a lot of converts. And we just never quit being amazed at what we can do with summer Bible camp. You see the man in the red shirt in the far back? He's the one directing the camp. His name is Eric. Actually, it's Edward. You can guess what that is in English. And we call him Eric. He was in the past a mafia bandit. And he is today one of the most effective preachers working anywhere in the former Soviet Union. I'm on the lookout for more bandits since they seem to make the best preachers. If you have any around here, let me know. I'm sure there are some right over here on the edge of town. So Eric's doing a great work. See, he just goes out and finds some empty land out somewhere. This doesn't belong to anybody but the state. He just finds a place under a tree near a river, and they pitch the tent and have camp. Do it the cheap way, and just do an effective work. And of course, they do all their exercise and activities and all that, but it's Bible study as to why we do that. And we convert lots of people. 10 were converted this summer in Bible camps. Verkhnedneprovsk, another long one. Verk means up or upper. So this is the upper Dniprovsk, the Dnieper River, so the upper Dnieper River region, or upper Dnieper River town. There's the preacher, Vladimir. We say Vladimir over here, but if you said it that way over there, they might not know what you were saying. Vladimir means Prince of the World. And he's doing a great job working with this congregation. And I sent him over there to that town. I asked him, when he got out of our Bible training college, I said, would you be willing to go to Verkhnedneprovsk, start a new congregation? And if you are, I'll support you in it. And he said, yes, I will. And so he went and did, doing a great job. There's Maria, his wife, and there's Nadia with her. And they have a small congregation at the present time, but it's a stable, faithful congregation. I'm having Bible study in there. This is on a midweek night. It was supposed to last an hour. It lasted 4 hours. I mean, after I was through, they wanted to talk and talk and talk some more and ask questions, and it just went on and on and on. We had cookies and tea and kept it going. Some of them are older. See that woman? You see the sleeve of the boy sitting next to her is her grandson. He's a Christian too. There he is. And his mother, her daughter, also a Christian, 3 generations in that family. Daughter wasn't present on that occasion. Some of the preachers I work with, and so here they are. The one standing up in the middle there was the driver on this occasion. He's not a preacher, but he's a faithful member of the church. And standing next to him back there is Eric, the former mafia bandit. And left front, Alosha, working with that left bank congregation in Dnipro-Dzerzhinsk, and sitting next to him, Vladimir, that we just showed, and me. And so there's some close-up shots. Look at that winning smile. I never can picture him as a bandit. And I want to tell you, he is a people magnet. Little children, old people, and all ages in between just seem to gravitate to him. And he has a wonderful example on them. So, well, I'm about to wrap this up, and that will be my last shot. And tell you that it was my privilege to present this to you today. I hope the elders don't mind me saying, I intended last year to find a moment to talk to them about possibly whether or not they might involve this congregation in my work, and I haven't yet been able to find that time. I missed the opportunity I had last year. The schedule didn't work out, but I hope to do that this week. And so that's my interest in showing that to you. The work goes on. It's a great work. And I would hope that people here might be able to be a part of it. Salem Church, by the way, up on the hill has been helping me out for a number of years. And thank you very much for your wonderful attention.